Okay, I want to show you something specific. Now, we've already been playing with some of the Swellegants. There's other videos. You've seen how we're laying on the paint and adding the patinas and all that magic. But I want to take a moment to show you how to be rusty. Because rust is amazing patina, but it's got a few tricks in order to do it properly. So let's get rusty together and I'll show you exactly how to do it like a pro. Okay, this is the end product. Now, isn't that delicious? Look at how rusty and wonderful that looks. And this is just a piece of polymer, that ultralight polymer pressed into a mold. But look at how wonderful that looks. So let's go through the process. First of all, I've got another mold here, another mold piece that's been baked, and I've covered it with iron. This is the iron. And I've done a couple of different layers on there. I made sure they were hardened, filling in all the gaps. You know the drill. Then we're going to come back and put one more coat, and we're going to use the Tiffany green rust patina. Then after that is all done, we're going to use a bunch of different dyes, and I'll show you those as we go along. And the final step will be hitting it with some silver just to give it these little highlights right here. See those little silvery highlights, which just look like a fun metal coming through. All right, so let's get our brush. Let's add another layer of iron. And we want to make sure that we've put on enough so that everything is really moist. If this starts to dry out, you're going to have a real hard time pulling that rust up. So make sure you've got your coating, and then immediately, did I say immediately? Go to your patina and dab that on nice and thick. Give it a lot. Remember, this was the Tiffany. Now, Tiffany will make the green on any copper-based metal, but it will make rust on anything that's got iron or steel in it. So it is just doing what nature would do to that product if we were out in the wild. All right, so you can see I've put a ton of patinas on there, right? So now we're going to come back to all of our dyes, and I'm using orange, yellow, red, white, all of those little goodies. And I'm going to just dab them in and around so that they can mix with the patina. Going to get a little bit of orange in there. Let's mix that orange with red. And I'm sorry, red, yellow. Here comes our orange. Because you know rust has all those nuances to it, so we really want to kind of beef up the fun. Now some of our white. And white just kind of makes everything a little softer, kind of adds that little crustiness out there. All right, do you see how gooey that is? How much dyes we've got in there? I'm going to go back one more time with just a little bit more patina. And the reason why I do this is, do you see what happened immediately? It sort of diluted those colors so that they all become a part of the rusting process. Now, here's the magic weapon, wet toilet paper or paper towel if you would prefer. I've gotten the paper wet and I've wrung out most of it, and I'm going to make like a little humidor right on top. Make a little tent so that it keeps everybody moist in there without touching it too much. And I'm going to leave it alone. I want this little moist environment because rust takes a long time to bloom, and I want to make sure it stays moist while it's doing that. You can check it in 5 or 10 minutes, and if it looks like it needs another little layer of patina, go for it. But we'll leave that alone and revisit it later and see what happens. All right, let's revisit our little rusty thing, shall we? Let's take a peek. Ooh, look at nice crumblies we're getting here. A little bit of funky color. I still see some shine on there. If you want, you can use a bit more patina if you feel like it needs something, but it's going to just keep on going and going. So I say, let's put it back underneath here, leave it alone, and we'll revisit it later. That was about half an hour, 45 minutes. I like to leave it overnight. We'll check it in the morning. Okay, it's been overnight. Let's take a look and see how magical our patinas have gotten. Oh, wow, look at this. If you didn't know that that wasn't polymer clay, wouldn't you think that was just some piece of rusted metal that you found out in the field somewhere? Now, the drawback, of course, is that some of the detail of this flower has been obscured by the rust. You may like that. You might just go, fine, I love it, it's a lump of rust, we're great. But I like to add just this little bit of pop to make it fun. So we're going to go back with that same iron that we used, but because the iron is such a dull color, I'm going to add a little bit of silver too to give it just a little bit more pizzazz. So I've got my paper towel in place so that I can make my little paste. So I'm going to start off with my iron, And again, I'm just rubbing it on that paper towel with my gloved finger so that I can get rid of that extra moisture, and then I'm going to smooth it over the surface. And you can see I'm already finding some of the details of my flower, which is exciting. Now, because this is such a dull color, I am going to use a little bit of silver after I do this to give it just that bit of highlight. This doesn't obscure all of the rust. It does obscure a little of it, but it lets my details come back out. All right, so now I've got a little bit of gunk there. I'm going to put a bit more in and dip into my silver and mix the two together. This will give me a little bit shinier, almost like tin kind of a thing, or a little bit of steel, whatever you're thinking there, but I like this. Now let's see what this looks like. Ready? Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. See how that just picks up? And by the way, if you do the sound effects, it's always going to turn out a little bit better, just saying. All right. And again, using my finger, because my finger's a flat surface, so I can hit the top easier than if I was to use a brush or a Q-tip, although you may prefer either of those. All right, what do you think? Now I've got this nice, wonderful shine. Now you might look at it and go, well, it's still lacking some kind of intensity. I can't really see what's going on. Well, we can now add a little bit of dye. So we're going to do that next. Okay, so now I'm using the charcoal black and a little bit of the sealant, and this is the mini size. Again, we've got mini sizes available too, which is really fun, and you can kind of taste them all and see what you think. Not literally, of course. And I put just a couple of drops of sealant in here, and what that does is while this is liquid, I can still play with it as if it's watercolor, but once it dries, it kind of attaches itself here so that when I add the final coating of sealant, it doesn't move around, so I like that. And all I'm going to do is just kind of come into the center part here and get a little bit of darkness in there. Now get my bigger brush with some water and let's move that around a bit so it's not quite so dark. And now paper towel, kind of blot away just on that surface so my silvery stuff shows through again. See what I'm doing there? And I'm going to hit the whole thing again with one more top coat once I'm happy with the result. Okay, let's do my brush one more time, maybe just a teeny bit more black. I'll use my water to smooth that out some, and a little bit more over here. But you see what I'm doing is I'm refining the details so that you can really see what's going on here. I use a combination of finger and I'm a big finger girl. I like to get my fingers in everything and get the details where I can feel them, but you may not like that, and that's okay. Now, it looks like we've obscured a lot of the rust. Don't worry. As soon as this dries, that rust kind of sneaks back up there. So there's what I've got so far. Now, it's a big black mess, and before it was a big orange mess, and then a big silvery mess, which is good. Mess is part of the process. I'm going to hit this with the heat gun, then we're going to come back and we're going to do one more touch-up. I can let this air dry, but I'm an impatient girl, so heat gun better. All right, let's do that. Okay, so I've hit it with the heat gun. What that does is just dries everything so I can play with it again. And you see that the rust has made its appearance one more time. So let's just go back there with a bit more of my iron and silver mixture on that paste and just pop the highlights ever so much. You can kind of experiment with the amount of mixture you like, whether you like it more silvery or more gray. That's kind of up to you. Too silvery and it's going to be looking too new. And since this is a rusty piece, we want to be careful about that. So there, just that little touch. Maybe right over here too. There we go. All right, so now look what you have. So you've got a little bit of darkness in the corners, and I could build that up even more by putting more in there, but I wanted just the hint, and we've got a little bit of our flower center showing, and we've got a lovely rusted piece. So there's only one last step with this. We have all the things on it that we like, but patina is a surface treatment, which means it's laying on that surface, which means it can be a little gritty, powdery, it could rub off. So if you're wearing this piece, number one, you don't want the patina to continue, because although the metal is sealed inside an acrylic base, it still has a little exposure to the air. So over time, all of the lovely things you did can get a bit more obscured as the patina just does its thing. So we want to protect that. But we also want to protect your skin if you're wearing this or your clothing from any of that rust to rub off. Because rust is beautiful on your flower, but not so pretty on your chest. So what we're going to do is use the Swellegant sealant. This is a matte finish. It's a urethane finish that just goes on top of any of the Swellegant products, and it's good for a number of other products too. It's great on polymer and papers and all kinds of other things, but it's specifically good to just lock and protect everything you've just done. Now, it's not the only thing you can use. You can use Renaissance wax, you can use clear lacquer spray, whatever you like, but I like this sort of matte finish because then there's no shine, which is going to contradict the old look. So I put some of that sealant in a little spray bottle. You can use a brush as well, but the spray bottle is kind of nice because you can just give it a couple spurts and you've got the whole surface there. But you see how it's sort of pooling up in areas? Get in there with a little paper towel and blot away that excess, because any areas that are too thick and puddle, it will dry a little milky, and we certainly don't want that. So that should be perfect. You'll notice that some of the patinas now look darker. It's just because they're wet. By the time that dries, it'll be right back to normal. Although, once in a while, there is a little bit of change. But let that dry, and it will be ready for whatever you want to do with it. So wasn't that fun? Did you realize that getting rusty could just be that exciting? So fun, right? I bet you want to rust everything in your world now, don't you?
Visit our Learning Center at cooltools.us for more cool jewelry making videos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and be sure to sign up for our email list to be the first to hear about new videos, new products, and other cool stuff from Cool Tools.